Chris Jordan, welcome to the Modern Sales Management Show.
Good to be here, Josh.
So you're one of the people in my network who I've been most looking forward to talking to because we've known each other for quite a few years and you've always been in a sales management role. Can you walk us through kind of the types of teams that you've led over the years?
Sure. So I've led several teams over the years, different size teams, different number of people within the teams, and doing different types of sales and sales-related activities. Everything from being the traditional directors that are hunting for new business, and as well as more account manager type folks that are managing existing business. And I say that because it's two different jobs within the sales process that you're doing. I would say hunting is almost easier at times, can be easier at times than being an account manager, because the account manager is having to deal with not only continuing the sales process, but also renewals and other functions that take up a lot of time. So different folks. Right now, I'm managing a team of 7 people, and again, combination of both hunters and account managers.
What I'm interested in is your approach to, how would you categorize your overall philosophy to managing and motivating and getting teams to perform?
Absolutely. So I think part of the sales management approach that I've taken on is you need to stay in the trenches with your sales team. You need to be working with them. You can't be on every call or every meeting because there's just not enough hours in a day. But I try every week to be on a handful of calls, visits, in the times that we can do in-person visits, of course, but a lot of Zoom meetings right now, just because you can work, number one, with your sales folks individually as they're talking to customers or prospective customers, and then that'll help you later on in what type of coaching that person might need. So part of it is staying in the trenches, being involved in those day-to-day conversations with customers or prospects. Aside from that, I do weekly one-on-ones with each person on my team. During those one-on-ones, we discuss everything from pipeline development to key accounts that they're working on or key deals that they're working on, as well as trying to take a look at areas that they need to improve on. And that is done not only me saying, hey, this is what you need to work on, but asking them where do they feel that they need some additional coaching on. And you try to do it in a collaborative way so people can stay motivated. I think if sales managers, if we just hit people over the head with the same thing 10 times, it loses its message.
So let's take it down a level. What are those ways that you coach people? What are the hacks that you've learned over the years? It sounds like you listen quite a bit to what they're going through. What's your approach to coaching? What's the framework that you overlay on?
Yeah, so as I'm on calls with folks, I'm taking notes not only on what a customer or a prospect is saying, I'm also evaluating how the salesperson is running the meeting. I have sales folks that do a great job at the relationship building, presentation, all those pieces. Their weakness could be talking about money and pricing, right? Very uncomfortable stuff, especially in the time that we're in now where budgets are tight. So someone like that, I'm going to make that note and say, okay, next time we have a one-on-one, we need to start talking a little bit about, what is their hesitancy behind the conversation of money, and where are they seeing it just like I'm seeing it? Because if they're not, then that's a bigger challenge at that point. We recently, something that's worked for us recently here at my company is we just put everyone through a sales assessment course or evaluation. And it was pretty intense. I mean, it took each person probably about an hour to do it online. And it gave us a really deep look at competencies within the sales DNA, as this sales assessment calls it. So now I'm able to really pinpoint and say, okay, well, this person's weaknesses are A, B, and C. And you also want to highlight their strengths, because you don't want to just be always at the negative stuff. So that's something that we just started. We had them do the sales evaluations in June, and then we just got the results recently. So now we're going through weekly meetings with each person to start tackling some of those areas so we can improve. And then the plan is in the next probably 3 to 6 months, have them retake the assessment and see if we see the improvements that we want to see as an organization.
Do you also have quantitative measures built into your process that you're monitoring to make sure people are improving?
Yeah, I mean, again, I always say in sales, number 1, number 2, and number 3 goal is bringing business in. And I look at bringing business, not only how much business have you closed, let's say in the last month, in the last quarter, or even during the year. I'm also looking at pipeline building, because if you hired somebody, let's say 4 months ago, in our industry, things do not move as quickly as we'd like them to. So what I want to see is, okay, well, is this person building the pipeline that will result in positive yields 6 months to a year down the road? So I always look at pipeline development as one piece, and the stages of each opportunity in that pipeline as it's progressing through the sales process, and making sure that we're making the right progress in a forward way. Of course, looking at closed business is another big piece of that. But closed business, right now, it's definitely slower than we would have wanted, 6 to 9 months ago.
So, all right, if I'm one of your reps, we're in a one-on-one, and what we want to focus on is pipeline development. What is your process that we would do together during this one-on-one to come up with a plan?
Sure. So part of one of our metrics that we use, or that I use, is whatever your sales quota is for the quarter or for the year, you should have 3 times that pipeline. So if your quota for the quarter was $250,000, you should have about a $750,000 pipeline for that quarter, because we think about a third of that will close, the other 2/3 will shift around. So that's one thing I'm looking at. What is the pipeline, and from a big picture view, right? Total. And then what is it for this quarter, and start looking at the next quarter. So right now we're 2 months into Q3 here in 2020. So just did that exercise over the last handful of days. And now what I'm looking at is, okay, we have a month left in Q3. We got Q4 coming up. And then of course, Q1 of 2021, start thinking about all those things. So I'm trying to figure out where are you in your quota at this point for the year? And do you have pipeline and opportunities to get you to that quota over the next 4 months? So those are the things that we're going to be evaluating.
So you're looking at those leading indicators that will result in hitting your quota.
Yeah.
Talk to me about something that I think you're really good at, is hiring. And you've kind of honed your skills in that area over the years. What is the key to hiring good salespeople, rock star salespeople, or at least people who you can develop into that role?
So yeah, hiring salespeople, one of the toughest things to do. Every time I have to do it, I'm like, oh, good gosh. I'm like, why again? But it's part of the job. And one of the things we try to do, again, you learn things over the years. So now we're at a process that we try to keep, just like a sales pipeline going. We have a pipeline of people. So that way, when we have either we're going to grow the team, or if we lose somebody, that we have kind of someone on deck. I start very brief. We have a small recruiting team here in CampusLogic that basically goes ahead and does some of the recruiting functions, right? So they'll have an initial call. Based on that initial call, we might put them through the sales assessment to again, that sales assessment process just started in the last 3 months, but we felt we needed something to really figure out, based on the sales assessment that we're doing with folks, will that person be the right fit here, not only from an organizational, but from a sales process point of view. And if those pieces match up, then I'll do the first interview with them. And it's usually about a 30-minute call. And really what I'm trying to do in those 30 minutes, you want to go over resume stuff, of course, and you want to ask some pointed questions about sales process. I'm trying to find out, can the person actually have a conversation? Much of our business is talking with people that we're selling to. Our sales are not a transactional one call done. It could take months to develop that relationship. I want to find out, can this person just have a casual conversation without trying to feed me the perfect answer all the time? So sometimes I'll throw the curveball question in there, of course. I do want to find out what type of sales cycles are they accustomed to. We've had people over the years here that we've hired that their sales cycles were 30 days, right? And our sales cycles here can be 6 months to a year down the road. So that's not a bad thing. But if you're accustomed to selling something in 1 or 2 calls, and then you come here, you're gonna run your head into the wall. Just like if we took somebody that's used to a 9-month sales cycle and dropped them in a transactional, that could also have a negative effect. So I'm trying in the initial call, in a 30 minutes, can they have a good conversation? Can they give me information about themselves? Trying to find out, are they going to be a match? And then from there, then we'll have them talk to a couple of our other regional VPs. Eventually, if that goes well, to our CRO, and then I'll probably have one more pass through with them to make sure that, hey, is this the right person? So it can take a little bit of time. It's not 1 week and that's it, we got it done. But that's kind of what we've been working on, and it's a hard thing to have to go through.
So when it comes to getting a team of 7 to follow a process, to everybody stick to the process, with some leeway, to use their own ingenuity and creativity to build the relationship. What have you found that helps people stick to the process? What are the keys?
Yeah. So aside from the one-on-ones, I do a team meeting every Monday morning for about an hour, where we talk a little bit. I usually ask folks to give me kind of like a highlight from the week before, not pipeline oriented or anything, just kind of something. Maybe they heard something about the industry, they heard something interesting from a customer, what have you. We talk a little bit about sales process. We have a sales process here, but it allows for latitude for each person, as you said, Josh, to develop their own style, right? If everybody does the same thing, that's not healthy either, right? We have the sales process as far as this is how an opportunity should flow, but what you do during that process of the opportunity flowing through the sales process, that's going to be dependent on that person's style, and also what that prospect or customer is looking for. And again, 7 people on the team. I have a couple, one rock star, a few folks in the middle, a few folks that are just newer into the sales arena. So you spend more time with some of those folks because you're trying to teach them. You want to let them try things, but when it doesn't work a few times, you want to say, okay, let's bring it back in and talk a little bit about why those things that they're doing may not be the best thing. And again, I think where people get crossed up that I see in the sales process is when it gets to that money conversation, and they feel uncomfortable, so they'll throw 4 or 5 different options at the customer. And I always say, if you throw 5 options at somebody for pricing, that's 5 ways of telling you no. Give them one option. They'll tell you if it's good or not, and then you can kind of move from there. So, those are the things those are the pieces of the sales process that I try to work with our folks.
That's really good advice. How's your sales management style shifted because you're not doing as much in-person work with your team and with your prospective customers?
Yeah, it's shifted for sure. I mean, being on the road with, not only to go visit customers and prospects, but you get to spend time with people on the road for a day or two, so you have more time to talk. our conversations are much more brief now. You know, as I said, one-on-ones range about 45 minutes in length. I probably, outside the one-on-one and outside the team calls, I probably talk to most people daily, if not every other day. Just as a, I think a nice check-in, just to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, Josh, how's things? Not really work-wise only, but mentally, how's the person doing? I think one thing we're all facing, Zoom fatigue or go to meeting fatigue or whatever technology you use. We're fatigued. Our customers are fatigued at this point. You're seeing it, right? Like 3-4 months ago, 5 months ago, people were really alert. Now everybody's like, oh my gosh, you know, like one more of these things. And, you know, you can have a day where you're on Zoom 10, 12 different times a day. So a lot of it for me is, yeah, you know, there's the job part of it, right? Managing, making sure that are they doing what they need to be doing? What's the hot opportunity or opportunities that they're working on? Are they stuck on something with pricing or contracts? But a lot of it right now is checking in with them. Like I said, daily, every other day. We utilize Slack. So sometimes if you can't get them on phone, you can Slack somebody and say, hey, Josh, how you doing? You know, so on and so forth. And admittedly, it's not something that I was accustomed to pre-COVID, because you were on the road constantly with people. So you didn't feel like you had to do that all the time, but now it's something that has to be done.
So I want to wrap up with the question of what advice would you give to Chris Jordan 10 or 15 years ago about running sales teams?
So as I said at the beginning, staying in the trenches of sales. I think that's probably the biggest. Some of my former colleagues that have moved up the ladder like I have, you know, into sales management, I think the biggest mistake that a lot of folks, I didn't make it that bad, but I did have it. I did notice it over the years. You move into sales management and you all of a sudden think, well, I can just kind of sit back and I have a team that's going to do the work and I don't have to get on the road. Or if I get on the road, it's not for the things you should be on the road for. So I say stay in the trenches. Someone like myself that was an individual contributor until not very long ago, another thing that I would recommend is people that you know, customers, prospects, what have you, stay in touch with them. Because even though your sales team should be calling on them, if I have the relationship with somebody 10, 15, 20 years, they're probably going to respond to me a little bit quicker and a little bit different than they're going to respond to a salesperson, an account rep that they've been assigned for 6 months or a year. I think those two things from the outside is going to help you develop, not only continue to develop your skills, but also you'll help your team long term that way. And then from the managing side of things, I think honesty is always the best policy. I know that's the cliche, but as soon as you see one of your reps that's not developing pipeline, closing business in the manner that you think it should be, you need to tackle it sooner than later. The longer you let it drag out, the worse it's going to get, and then you'll reach the point that the repair might be almost impossible to do. So I think that those are things that you have to, you know, celebrate the good, address the weaknesses, and just help people improve. That's what our jobs are.
That's really good advice. This conversation has been really helpful, full of very real world actionable tips. So Chris, where can people connect with you online?
Sure. So I am on LinkedIn, and Chris Jordan is the best way to find me there. I'm the VP of Sales here at CampusLogic. We're one of a couple of us that are in the VP of Sales at CampusLogic. So that's the best way to do it. If people want to, they can. My LinkedIn directs them straight to my work email, and I have it public settings, so you can email me within LinkedIn or send me a message or connect with me. And I'm happy to connect with anybody. And I'm connected with a lot of folks, not only from the higher ed industry, but technology and other industries as well. And I put a lot of stuff out there. I'm on Twitter as well. That one I don't, I'll post things, but not as active as I probably need to be. But LinkedIn is the best way.
Great. So before we go, is there any final advice that you'd like to give the VPs of sales that are listening to this podcast today?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, as I mentioned, stay in touch with your teams, not only as a team, but as individual reps. Talk with them honestly about their work. Also, I always ask, and my boss does this with me every week, ask them, what can you do to help them? My boss every week during my one-on-one with her, she says, what can I do to make your life better, right? Whether it's helping them with a specific customer or prospect or what have you, or maybe they want training and they're afraid to ask, or they don't know how to ask, or what have you. So, be straightforward with people, check in with them, have a conversation, and sometimes not a conversation just about, okay, we're going to go over your pipeline and that's it. Make it a little bit more just open conversation with them.
That's a really good note to end on. Chris, I want to really thank you for taking this time to walk us through your process and some of the secret sauce that you've instilled into your team.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And that does it for this episode of the Modern Sales Management Show. Thanks for listening.